Revisited. I am Karker Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and the narrative, as well as personal response to each of these chapters. We'll also be talking about how this chapter connects to the rest of the series. As usual, we begin these videos with a reading of the chapter that we are discussing for this episode. This is Chapter 91, Der FORESHADOWING. I sense clashes of spiritual pressure everywhere. 1, 2, 3. Stay alive, people. 4, 5, 6. Oh, thanks, are you? I'm okay. Alright. His expression, it's different from before. His movements are different, too. For a second, he disappeared from my senses. He caught me before I knew he was there. He's changed so drastically just from facing a Soul Reaper. It's like Mr. Yorichi said, Uryu is a Quincy, and Soul Reapers are still his enemies. 10! Your time for regret is up. Were you able to regret to your satisfaction? Here it comes. Okay. In a moment, you will have all eternity to regret. Bleach, Chapter 91, Der FORESHADOWING. Tsubaki! Koten Zanshun! Lone Heaven cut shield. I reject! Ha! Tsubaki! Foolish woman! You throw like a girl! Tsubaki. I've never seen a move like that before, but I sense no murderous intent behind your attack. You may be able to kill a hollow with that move, but it won't work on a Soul Reaper. Do you think this is a playground? This is a battlefield. You won't accomplish anything here with an attack that lacks murderous intent. What? You want murderous intent? Then fight me. You'll find what you're looking for in my bow. How unexpected. You wouldn't happen to be a Quincy, would you? I am. Uryu's bow. He's changed. The look, the shape, even the spiritual pressure, that glove. That's why he trained by himself. To learn how to handle it. This should be fun. A girl with mysterious moves and a Quincy. And they both use weapons. And two of you to appear as my enemies. What a coincidence. What a twist of fate. Then I shall show you the true form of my Zanpakuto. Spread your wings, Sunzaki Karasu. Splitting Crow. What do you think? Now feel regrets. I am Jirobo Ikanzaka, fourth seat of the 7th Company, also known as Kametachi Jirobo. The Kametachi is an extremely fast and deadly creature of legend. The word literally means sickle weasel. The title of Kametachi is the mark of the ultimate weapons master. No one but me has ever seen these blades flitting through the air and lived. Terrifying, aren't they? They're quicker than the eye. As a weapons master yourself, you must regret having met me. Oh. How interesting. Unlike those in the world of the living, it seems that the ultimate weapon masters here like to make long, boring speeches. What? That was luck! Don't get smug! You still don't understand. I'm sorry, but after today, you won't be able to call yourself the ultimate anymore. With weapons, I'm far superior to you. I just don't like the way Kamitachi Uryu sounds. Uryu? Kamitachi? Kamitachi Uryu? Anyway, that's it for Chapter 91, The FORESHADOWING King. Let's get back to the beginning and we can discuss a little bit of the art and narrative, what's going on here, the illusions that are being made, so on and so forth. So, talking about this chapter, we have, of course, opening on homeboy, what's his name? Yorichi, right? Mr. Yorichi. Yorichi-san. Of course, you immediately know it's Yorichi from the first panel, but Kubo really does like these establishing panels, and I don't blame him. I think it does a really good job of kind of keying you in and bringing you into a scene. Some manga will be a little bit quicker about clipping you from one part to another, and that can kind of give you a sense of whiplash, but I think Kubo's always kind of made good use of these transitionary panels, and here, having one at the beginning of the chapter really roots us where we are, instead of just jumping right into this dialogue. Kubo, I think, always has this sense for the cinematic or the visual over narrative. Sometimes, to, of course, the series is, you know, weakness. It can be a strength as well as a weakness, is what I'm saying. Sometimes the narrative probably needs a little bit more focus, but we'll get there. Nevertheless, this is essentially to confirm that, of course, Yorichi has great awareness of spiritual pressure, but also that we get confirmation about at least 3 different battles that are happening. And so if you think about it, of course, we know that Ganju, Ichigo, and Uryu, as well as Orihime, are all in a fight. We don't have any confirmation of Chad, though it seems as though he was hiding. So, this adds up. Well, I do wish that maybe there were a higher number even to imply perhaps more chaos happening. This makes sense. And I mean, at this point, you know that Ichigo's battle is already over with, so perhaps this number could be interpreted that way, because it is still vague to an extent. As far as the title, the FORESHADOWING, that just means free shooter. Yeah, it's like marksman. It's also specifically a literary reference to an opera, or rather an old German story that follows basically this guy who makes a deal with the devil to have a gun will have bullets that will always hit their target, right? But the idea is that out of the 7 bullets that he has, or however many bullets he has, one of them is going to be guided by the devil himself. So it's okay, well, you can always make your perfect shots, but one of them is going to always be kind of an evil one that will be up to literally a maleficent sort of impulse, right? So it's yeah, maybe you'll hit whatever your mark is, but perhaps one of these bullets, and you don't know which one, is going to hit somebody that you care about, or even yourself, right? So it speaks towards perhaps the danger of weapons, right? That weapons are a powerful thing, that they can allow us a lot of strength, but also that there's some sort of curse there, that these weapons perhaps can also be our undoing. And this chapter does focus on weapons a lot. I don't really see that the FORESHADOWING connects hardcore to any one of these characters. I mean, I think the overall sense of those who bear weapons also might have those weapons harm themselves or the people close to them. That isn't explored so much as those who bear weapons are put into danger, and that the pursuit of power is going to continue to put oneself and those that they care about into danger, as we see with the characters here. Of course, their FORESHADOWING king, the king, of course, it's Uryu, right? Uryu is king. Also, the German tends to sort of be connected to the Quincy and the Uryu. They have very Germanic leanings. So whenever you see something like the FORESHADOWING, and it's okay, this is about a marksman, this is about a sharpshooter, this is about somebody with bullets that don't miss, but some sort of cursed aspect to them, and that eventually that evokes Uryu, right? That Uryu does have this excellent accuracy and these sort of almost literally supernatural powers, right? But it does come at a cost, right? That he is eliminating souls from the balance of souls, but also, we don't know exactly all the stipulations that come furthermore with Quincy powers, right? So there's a little bit there, which is kind of interesting. We do get Jirobo here, who's a kind of interesting character. Pretty sure he is related to Jidanbo, if you could not tell by the naming convention, as well as the fact that he is a big dude. I think gets confirmed maybe in a data book. I'm not quite sure. I'm not a fan of his design. I think he's kind of, nasty fish lip man. I mean, his design is the sort of design that you see in Bleach. You're like, okay, well, this guy's going to get, like, he's a jobber. He's going to get wrecked. But nevertheless, I think that he does establish himself as a good stepping stone for our characters, and he does provide a little bit of conflict. He does get shot down pretty quickly. Ho ho ho. We get a little bit more of Orihime, and I often feel like a lot of people overlook this aspect of Orihime, how perceptive that she truly is. I think she's more perceptive than anyone else in the main cast. Where like Ichigo, he can often be kind of short-sighted, focused on what's at hand, right? And then Uryu maybe has a bigger sense of the bigger picture, but Uryu also gets very caught up in his own sort of conflicts, right? And he gets very biased, as we saw constantly throughout his introduction. And I mean, even when they arrived in Soul Society, whenever there was danger upon them, he was too focused on maybe the danger and got caught up inside of it. Chad does seem a little bit more aloof. Uh, Chad has an awareness, but maybe it's not as precise. Whereas Orihime, she's really emotionally aware as well as spiritually aware, and that's I think because it's presented kind of in exposition, right? That we get these moments where she's recognizing something about a character. We can read that maybe more as the narrative telling us that, and not Orihime expressing that. So it's often overlooked. I think, again, Orihime typically gets looked down upon as a character. I don't think she gets the respect that she deserves. And, I want to highlight that, like, hey, she has her qualities as well, and they aren't all just, like, strictly traditional feminine qualities. Um, of course, the big thing that she notices is that there is this sort of boiling blood within Uryu, right? That he starts to take things very seriously as he is up against Soul Reapers, right? We also get that as a reminder for ourselves. I mean, that's a lot of why it's there. Of course, here we have Jirobo insisting upon this time for regret, and that they're always going to have time for regret, which is kind of an interesting bit there. Kind of interestingly, also, we have a lot of like our duo protagonists kind of left facing, like left right facing. So, like, I mean, we're reading them coming on towards them. So we get the sense of this character being kind of oppressive and holding the right side of the page. We talked about that in the last video a little bit, and so we get the sense like this Jirobo is presented as this sort of strong aggressor, right? That's gonna conflict with our characters who are put on the back foot. Of course, we get Uryu tied to the Freischütz King. So, again, a connection there. Kubo also really likes music, by the way. Bleach, potentially a Nirvana reference, potentially, but really a lot of musical allusion to both classical music and different operas, but also to various songs that I've never heard of. You'll see that throughout. I mean, it's sort of like how in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, several of the character stands are named after like different bands or songs. Same thing here. Well, I say same thing here. We're not going to see Zanpakuto named after like a band or a song, but we often see allusions to different musical things because Bleach has this kind of punk vibe to it, and music has always been kind of punk, so it fits, I guess. Anyway, I like this big, pan out shot as we get the collateral from this large slash as they split. And here we see that he goes after Orihime, or rather that Orihime spins. I love the spin up of Tsubaki from her, from what is it, her hairpins, right? This is such a great. I love the way that this panel looks, just effective. As she goes for the Kotenzanshin and fires it at him, right? This idea that she'll just bisect this guy like she did the Numb Chandelier Hollow, but we get this strong sort of, again, this right to left action, which is typically reserved for our protagonist, but instead is being used for Jirobo to kind of upset the balance, to really set him as this aggressor, right? And so Tsubaki gets pretty seriously injured, and you wonder if she can just reject that event or what the deal would be. But yeah, of course Tsubaki giving her a hard gendered time. Now, the kind of interesting thing here is that we talk about, attacks that have murderous intent, right? That you have to be trying to actually kill your enemy. And really, this ultimately kind of serves to highlight that Orihime doesn't have the same sort of bloodlust that, somebody might, like one of these other characters might, right? That she's not really trying to murder people. She's a little bit more soft. She doesn't have the sort of intensity that these other characters have. But also, this helps to serve that this is a new sort of battlefield. That this isn't going to be as easy as it was with the Hollows, right? That this isn't the playground that was the Substitute Soul Reaper arc. But this is the serious business. Oh, this guy's only 4th seat, right? It's going to be much harder. Of course, the other implication here is that he is coming at her with murderous intent. We get this huge kind of looming, coming down with this slash over Orihime. I generally like kind of how things are paneled out in this chapter. It's pretty neat. We get this burst of energy, and I love that it continues across the next page, basically, as we get this large shot that comes across this guy's arm, shatters his bracelet, his kind of rosary, right? And you can maybe suspect that he's so caught up in like this idea of regret and of paying one's regrets, maybe because there is some sort of religious sort of undertone there. Who knows? Of course, we finally get to see Ishida using his new bow. So upgrades for everybody, right? Of course. The most visual of them all being the way that Ishida looks in this volume, in this whole arc. Really, it's pretty different from how we've seen him before, especially with the bow that he has from the Sanrei glove. And I like that it's like literally kind of growing out of the glove, which is pretty cool. It's an interesting visual, nevertheless, and it's one that's often thought of whenever people think of Uryu. I will say that it does have some, again, allusions. I think the patterning here reminds me there is a Buddhist sort of like scepter, it's like a Valra or something like that, like Valjra. Is that correct? I believe that's the case, but it's essentially it's meant to kind of show power. And so I feel like that's sort of alluding to that. What is it? Vadra? Yeah, it's typically a weapon used by Indra, which is a rain and thunder deity. And so, yeah, Vajra. Yeah, no L. I don't know why I remembered it having an L in there. Anyway, yeah, you've probably seen this in various statues or in some sort of thing, but it reminds me of that a little bit in its patterning and the way that it is. But also, I mean, it's a bow, so who knows. Anyway, the idea is that it's supposed to be perhaps evocative, which a lot of Bleach is evocative of different spiritualities. We have those clashing here, which is neat. Of course, cool shot of Uryu. Insistence on Uryu as being murderous, And here, finally, we're starting to see like the tide turn, right? That we get confirmation of him being a Quincy. Of course, we get confirmation of the difference in the bow, and we get, of course, the release date of the Shikai of old Jirobo, Sunzaki Karasu, which is the splitting crow, as it splits into all these little flying blades. I always thought, it's kind of wild that we get to see this guy's release comparatively. Like, we get to see a lot about this guy's weapon, whereas, it's so far, we don't, obviously, Ruki is one that, if she's capable of that, we're not going to get to see that. We haven't seen anything like that, so that's been introduced with Renji, right? But we have so many characters that doesn't apply to so far. So many Shinigami that we're interested in. The fact that we get this guy's, whereas this guy gets shot down so quickly. I always thought it was kind of rude. I don't know. It feels like an outlier because I imagine that you know you probably want to see a lot of the captain's weapon releases, right? And those are sure to come, but I don't know. Perhaps it fits that this guy is introduced here, and that we get his Shikai as well. It certainly fits with what we've been seeing so far, of these characters coming across a Shinigami and then them revving up the fight by using their Shikai. I also kind of like that his release is that he forces his hand down on the blade itself, and then it splinters out into all of these different little blades. Of course, he finally introduces himself. He's force seat of the 7th Company, and that he also is called Kametachi. So the Kametachi is a famously known Oni or spirit. I don't even think it's an Oni. It's just a yokai, really. But gets referenced a lot in manga, notably in a contemporary in Naruto. The Kametachi gets referenced in relation to the lady with the fan, whose name's not coming back to me, but she uses various sickles, and I think she even summons Kametachi for one of her abilities. Of course, whenever we're talking about this guy, he is in the 7th division, but we haven't really learned too much about the 7th, so, yeah. Like, as far as who he's under, as far as kind of what's his deal, is not quite so clear. We don't really. I don't think at this point we even know. Who the captain of the 7th is, right? So we know the 6th, which is of course Byakuya and Renji. We know the 3rd, having Gin at the helm. We know some of the other ones. We know the 11th. We've gotten pretty intimately familiar with members of the 11th, but we have yet to really experience much from the 7th. And so this is our first sort of point of contact. But yeah, as far as weapons go, it's kind of an interesting one that it creates all these sort of flying sickles that he can command, assumably at will, that levitate around him, and he can attack his enemies with. I don't like. Obviously, we don't get to see it used in very extreme fashion as of this chapter, so we can't really speak towards its utility. But it certainly seems more useful than what is the 5th seat of the 11th, Yumachika's. And I mean, even comparing this to something like Ikaku's, though Ikaku is much more of a martial fighter, and I think were Ikaku in this position, he wouldn't have been defeated in the same way that Jirobo is, right? So, perhaps there is that to it as well. Of course, he brings up the reason why he brought up weapons earlier is he's talking about being this ultimate weapons master, right? He's really bluffing up, or say, boasting up his weapon, his Kametachi. And whenever a character gets really eccentric and excited about their own powers, that's whenever they are done for. Kind of wonderful shot here of all of the different blades getting destroyed. I wonder, because I guess he resheaths his sword right here, even though maybe it's only a little bit of the handle left. Because, yeah, whenever we come here, he's got his sword sheathed. So, assumably the handle, the hilt, and everything, the guard stays around, whereas everything else just becomes the blades that fly around him. But, yeah, wonderful shot is, of course, we get this left to right movement, which is this response from Uryu as he kind of overtakes the page and really insists upon his own capabilities by, of course, destroying all those pieces of his weapon. he also, verbally destroys him. And here, I love that he like draws it and we get it crescendoing into those blades as he's drawing his sword again to make even more. And or you just destroys them again, takes them out with a single other shot. Um, of course, we also get, I think, my favorite panel of the entire chapter is this one, where we get the shot from Jirobo's point of view, with Uryu really dominating this panel, really front and center. And I love the kind of the smoke from maybe the power of his shot, whatever you might interpret that as. But yeah, this kind of insistence, this is Uryu and peak Uryu, really talking down to his opponent, really serious and kind of malevolently powerful, but also with like an edge to him of like, I don't like the way Kamitachi Uryu sounds. It's a good end to this chapter. I think it really establishes him as dominant, and if Jirobo is going to be able to pull anything out, he certainly, he needs to next chapter, or else he's done for, right? Of course, I do love, we get a little bit of Orihime's imagination of what Kamitachi Uryu would be like, right? Sickle-handed weasel, pretty much. It's cute. And that's essentially all that we have to talk about for this chapter. I do think, there's some kind of interesting things going on with the art here. I think it's very clean. Notably, I love the shading works pretty well, but like really strong and confident inks in general. Um, just effective paneling, lots of really clear cut, easy to read action. I think this is a chapter that another author might not do quite nearly as much, effective respect to. I love that the sound effect kind of whoops up with the movement of his arm coming up to use his weapon. All in all, it's good stuff, and it really shows how to do an effective chapter with an aggressor that then is taken down, right? That he can that like Jirobo has control of so much of the momentum of the chapter until the very end of it, whenever Uryu finally kind of takes that back, um, from left to right, which is pretty neat. It's a change up. It's not something that we've really seen that much of. Um, yeah, I'm about it. I'm here for it, and I think it's all in all, it's a fun chapter. I like that we do get to finally highlight some of our abilities. It's a little bit upsetting to see, uh, Orihime take the L. That Tsubaki does get injured here, and whether or not that'll have lasting effects, we have yet to see. But you know, we see that Orihime still has some growing to do, right? Even though she did train, perhaps she's more in that support role, which is a little bit unfortunate. That's typically a role that female characters do get relegated to, though we'll see exactly what Orihime is capable of pulling off in the chapters to come. Nevertheless, I think it's good stuff. I think it's a solid time to jump back to this other conflict that we have and to remind us of these little battles that we have going on. It makes a good transition away from where we were with Ichigo to an encounter that we had been hinting at before and kind of building up. And so you can expect, obviously there will be more to this in this conflict, since Jirobo isn't absolutely defeated at the end of this chapter. I mean, more or less he is, but there's certainly more to their interaction to have happen. So we have that to look forward to. But this chapter is kind of conclusive in its own right. So you have to wonder exactly where things will be going. And maybe we'll jump to one of the other fights. Maybe we'll get that intercut with what we have, but we'll find out. All in all, I do like the chapter. I do think it's pretty solid. Stands out for a first kind of initial sense of Uryu being powered up and more capable. Whenever I think about this fight in retrospect a lot, I typically I tend to see it as like one that's sort of not thought about a lot, or one that's often overlooked, even though I think it does some pretty good establishing things for our characters and for even things like the Seventh Division and other places. So I think there are people that certainly might be of the mind that like this encounter perhaps isn't necessary. But I do like it as kind of a lower stakes. I mean, still pretty important, but like, we get Ichigo and Ganju fighting like non-captain class characters, right? And so it's nice to see that with Uryu and Orihime, that we get this real benchmark of like, okay, well, up against a kind of serious Shinigami, but not the most powerful, how do they fare? You know? And I like that because it will help to give us a standard to look at those characters as they progress throughout this arc. Anyway, that's been about it for this chapter. If there's anything that you noticed, anything you want to talk about, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, we will get into discussing spoilers, right? Talking about how this chapter connects to the rest of the series. And there are a few connections here. Of course, everyone does stay alive. Woohoo. No one dies in Bleach. Chirobo, right? What a character. Never comes up ever again. Well, I was sort of alluding towards it whenever I was talking about my analysis, but the fact that this guy uses his Shikai, and it's one of the few named Shikai where we know its abilities, and that we have characters like Iba Tetsuzaimon, which is this guy's eventual captain, and we we don't even know what Iba's Bankai, much less much of what his Shikai is capable of. Yeah, it's wild. And the fact that this guy gets a full like presented Shikai compared to some of the other characters, I don't think it's necessarily an injustice, but certainly feels strange because it feels like almost every other character, no, every other character that we've ever seen release Shikai ends up returning and being significant. And this guy, well, Uryu ends his whole career, right? Once again, we get this insistence. I do like that this chapter has, of course, that Germanic title. Whenever I talk about, of course, the Curse of the Quincy and thinking about a king in relation to the Quincy, there's a lot more evocative there whenever we know the whole picture of the Quincy and exactly the whole idea of, how the Sonnery glove works, even if you think about in relation to the Freischütz king, right? So it's I think a fitting sort of title for Uryu, of wielding, essentially a cursed power. Not something that we see too much in this chapter of, we see him using, of course, the arrows that hit their mark, but not so much the sort of other side of things, the cursed or sort of downfall of his power. Of course, speaking about like how this guy fits into the seventh, a lot of people will tend to think of the seventh as being a little bit more serious about honor, about justice. So it's like, well, how's Jirobo fit in? How does Jirobo relate to characters like Iba, characters like Komamura, right? And I don't know. I think that there's this idea of like having regret, and he has like a certain deference. There's also like a martial capability. Him being a big guy too fits. So I don't know. I think he fits perfectly well as a member of the seventh. Maybe not like a defining one, but certainly he seems reflective of some of what's kind of going on there. We know, of course, here Tsubaki gets injured, and I don't know that since this point, I don't think we ever get another Koden Zanshun in the entirety of the series. I think this might be the last one. Because I think here we get this defining moment for Orihime, and it's weird to think that Jirobo is the one to do that, but that Tsubaki gets injured, right? And that in this moment, Orihime realizes that she doesn't really have that killing intent that perhaps the others do. And I don't know if she ever really gets it. She certainly is serious later on, and she does what she can within her own means. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that we never see another Koden Zanshin. I'm pretty sure that she never uses Tsubaki again, at least in a way to attack an enemy. I could be wrong. I don't think she even uses him in the final battle against Yuabak. So it's curious. I wonder if this is maybe Kubo walking back her powers a little bit, that he realized that perhaps Orihime can sort of do anything. So like this is a way to sort of show that her powers aren't almighty, and to really focus on the things that she can do, and to sort of not rewrite her character, but retroactively sort of like weaken parts of her character. Although I say retroactively weaken, I think we just had a strong showing from him before, and you know I think this helps to define the limits of her powers, right? Uh, so yeah, it's unfortunate that even a 4-seat Shinigami can do this much damage to Tsubaki, but Orihime is just not like really in a place to do battle with someone like that right now, So it fits, but yeah, if you can remember another time that she ever does Koden Zanshin, and I don't think she ever does. I think this is literally the last time. And I mean, we're not going to see the fairies like ever again anyway. So, like, really quickly, Orihime's powers. I don't know. It's weird that there's so much focus on like the fairies and them as entities and all of that, but yeah, that sort of gets left by the wayside as we go throughout the series. So, something to think about, though. Yeah, this might be the last panel of Tsubaki in this entire manga. I'm sure we'll see him again. Surely. Anyway, yeah. Are you coming in? Of course. I don't know that there's really much else that we can speak towards. As far as foreshadowing or spoilers, I mean, obviously, him using the Sanrei glove, the real intense focus on the parts of the glove that like this sort of intersecting bit that he has to break off to use what is essentially Volstand Dig, right? To release the glove. We know that's going to be significant. I do like the coloration on it. I think it's kind of cool. It's a neat sort of design, but the idea of Uryu training with things that manipulate his spiritual pressure and that have different shape and that take on different effects. I mean, this is going to be a through line with his character, right? Of course, this idea of I love that he brings up that he's got like, oh man, my cool, I am the Kametachi, right? The ultimate weapons master. No one's seen these blades and lived. And it's like, bud, you essentially have Sinbon Sakura, but worse. Like you have Sinbon Sakura, but it is garbage. I mean, he's got a really bad matchup here with Uryu. I'm sure that like against another character that couldn't really do anything about these multiple blades, he'd certainly have a better time. But yeah, I always thought it was kind of hilarious that this guy essentially has garbage Sinbon Sakura, but he's so full of himself. Is like, I am the weapons master, and I wonder, like if that's a title that they just let him keep, like as a joke. I don't know. Because, like, you think about characters like Zaraki, and Zaraki, you couldn't really call the weapons master because he doesn't really train, right? And so, but like, I think about other characters that certainly seem martially adept, like Ikaku, right? And Ikaku does end up running his own dojo down the line. So, I don't know, it's weird that we think of Jirobo as the weapons master. Uh, like, as a person who is the ultimate weapons master. It'd be kind of interesting to see him training people in Ikaku's dojo as a kind of a subordinate later on. I mean, can he really do anything after what's done to him by Uryu? I don't know. I mean, he certainly won't be able to use his Zanbakuto. So, yeah, it's curious. It's curious. But nevertheless, there is this weird title of ultimate. I guess he says the title of Kametachi is the mark of the ultimate weapons master. So he's not really saying he is. He just has the title of Kametachi, and maybe he lets that get to his head a little bit too much. I don't know. It's speculative, but this guy seems really boastful for a 4-seater. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I mean, Yamachika's a 5th-seater, but come on. Come on. How often do we see somebody that's not like lieutenant or captain that is this full of themselves, or even releases a Shikai? So, I don't know. The fact that he is 4-seated and he has a Shikai, uh, assumably most Shinigami can use. Well, I say assumably. We know a lot can't, but presumably anyone who graduates the academy maybe can, right? 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 I don't know. What are your thoughts? Let me know. Make sure to tag anything as spoilers. Um, of course, are you talking them down and being cool? But yeah, I'm trying to think of like later Uryu battles that we get, and if this really connects to very many of them. I mean, obviously this is setting up Uryu via Uryu versus Mayuri is going to be the next big sort of encounter. And the fact that Mayuri isn't just like a straightforward physical attacker is something that will trip Uryu up and give him pause, and also give him an even more serious kind of disgust for an enemy to fight instead of just being the typical Soul Reaper versus Quincy deal, right? That he'll have a more personal antagonist there in Mayuri. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the other connections here. Certainly, Uryu being focused on like disabling his opponents is a big thing. Are you ultimately? I think throughout the series is always sort of, if he's not outright defeating his opponent, he often is disabling them. And it's interesting that his very first like battle against like a serious opponent that's not hollow. This first battle that we see him kind of using the Sunray glove, and we take him as more of like a part of our protagonist force. Um, that he does seal this guy's, what is his soul seal or whatever, right? That he does pierce him through the heart with that, or near the heart, or whatever it is. Um, and that the final kind of confrontation, right? That he uses the still silver arrow to do a very similar thing to the Soul King, or rather, I say he's the Soul King, to Yuha Bak, right? So a lot of people, like to talk shit on the Still Silver Arrow. They really do. Whereas I feel like everything about it has been established from the beginning. I say everything about it, like shooting an arrow through a particular part of the enemy's body to seal their powers has been a thing that's established since like this fight. So, I don't know. Still Silver Arrow didn't strike me as particularly odd. I mean, the fact that, like, oh, we've got this arrow that you can shoot him with, like, it didn't, I don't know. Like, I think that's just to give it, like, yeah, another cool tool to Uryu, because he's always using cool tools. But, like, the act of using it to disable the person, like, to disable Yuha's power, always struck me as something that was in line with what we'd seen throughout Bleach, and especially if you're thinking about, okay, we're going to defeat the ultimate villain of Bleach. Everybody has to use their powers to a different extent, So Orihime uses her powers to reject. Ichigo uses his fight man powers. Chad is off screen, using his off screen powers of not being a part of the manga. So, of course, Uryu uses his powers to disable the enemy, right? And I don't know, it all harkens back to a lot of the stuff that they do in the Soul Society arc, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know. I thought it was cool. All I'm saying is that I'm a Still Silver Arrow apologist, or whatever. And I thought it was cool, and I wish Chad did more. But it's the sort of thing that I think a lot of people like to complain about because it's an easy thing to complain about. Maybe it doesn't sit well with certain readers, but yeah, it's interesting to think about Uryu in this disabling kind of mode, right? That he is so much aligned with kind of turning the tides of battle by disabling his enemy. And if you think of the ability that he ends up getting his ship, the antithesis, the antithesis. Anyway, antithesis. That kind of fits in line with how Uryu uses his powers throughout the entirety of the series, right? That he has some sort of trump card that he pulls out that he uses to turn the tides of the battle and really either defeat or disable his enemy. But there's so much focus on like debilitation, and it's interesting that the Mayuri's battle kind of turns that back upon him, right? That he gets paralyzed and disabled too, um, and then like he's still able to fight through that by using the like the spirit, his reishi control. That's such a cool moment. I can't wait till we get there. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's neat to think about in relation to Uryu. Of course, I will refer to Uryu as Kaimetachi Uryu for the rest of my life because he doesn't like the way it sounds. But that's it for this chapter, folks. As always, remember, give the video a like if you got all the way through here. I really do appreciate you watching it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure to let anybody you know who's a fan of Bleach know about this. I'd love to get just more eyes and ears here, more discussion in the comments, any of that. If you'd like to take that support to a different step, if you'd like to support it in a different mode, you can always support me on Patreon. Right now, you're seeing all of my Patreon supporters as of making this video. And I want to give a huge shout out to all of you guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's it for this video. That's all I got for this one, folks. As always, this has been Karakura Gold, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.